Serious violence is on the rise. Communities are being torn apart. Last year, 726 people were murdered in the UK. 285 of those with a knife or bladed weapon. That's the highest level since records began.
This is an emergency that requires an emergency response.
My daughter.
My son.
My brother.
My son.
My sister.
My son.
My brother.
My son.
My son.
Ryan's bedroom is still exactly the same as it was the night he went out. He's still got his dirty washing in the basket, his kit bag. When he came back from football, is still the same. Because I think he's going to walk back. He's going to walk back in that house. He's going to wake up and he's going to walk back into his bedroom.
A murder investigation's underway after a man was stabbed to death in a Stourbridge nightclub last night. The victim, who's been named locally as 24-year-old Ryan Passy, was reportedly attacked inside Chicago's in the town centre. The high street has been closed and remains cordoned off this morning. Members of the public have already begun laying tributes, including flowers, outside the nightclub next to the Rye Market shopping centre.
He was out with his friends and drinking in a local bar. Everybody knew him in there. Apparently there was a bit of a scuffle.
It must have been senseless. It must have been over nothing. And I don't think Ryan ever seen the knife. I don't think he could defend himself from the knife.
The knife went straight through to the back of his heart. Cut all these veins at the back of his heart, so no matter what would have happened, they couldn't have resuscitated him. Apparently he says he wasn't even going to go out that night. It was just last moment decision. I've seen the videotapes. It wasn't even a scuffle. It was like a few lads chucking handbags about, and then the next minute he's lying on the floor. And somebody had stabbed him.
I had a message. Ryan had been stabbed.
They just took us into this room, sat us down, and the doctor come into us and said, he opened him up, but he was just bleeding out everywhere.
And they pronounced him dead at 7 minutes past 2. The worst thing I've ever heard in my life.
I just needed to see him. They said, no, you can't see him because it's a murder investigation and it's evidence.
It just broke us. And watching his mum suffer. That's one of the worst. Watching her break down. Sit there in the shower, crying. Well, I know for a fact, if she could, she'd end it.
They should have took me as well when they took Ryan, because it's just broke me. It's like it's broke my heart.
You don't know, do you? if I could have been here, I could have rung him and said, "Where are you? I'm coming down to have a drink with you." So right there, just anything like that might have made a difference.
The funeral of Ryan Passy has taken place almost 7 weeks after he was stabbed to death at a Stourbridge nightclub. Kobe Murray, who's 19, has been accused of murder, a charge he denies, and is due to go on trial in January.
It was a relief when we were told by the police that this guy had handed himself in.
Kobe Murray was his name. And he lived literally 8 minutes drive from here.
This guy admitted stabbing Ryan, putting a knife into his chest. The trial was very, very difficult. Looking at, obviously, Kobe Murray, who took our Ryan, and everybody making him out to be a lovely boy, and for him to stand up in court and state not guilty, it's just unbelievable.
He says I accidentally stabbed him in the chest. Right through the chest.
Kobe Murray, the man who admitted inflicting the fatal stab wound which killed Ryan Passy in a Stourbridge nightclub last year, has been found not guilty.
When they came out with a verdict, I mean, we were all shocked. There was a lot of shouting, screaming. Even the judge was shocked, though.
We all sat there, the whole family, just dumbstruck.
Murray is also cleared of manslaughter by the jury, who, after 5 hours of deliberation, unanimously concluded he had acted unintentionally.
How can 12 people find him not guilty?
For somebody to stand up in court and admit doing what he did do, I just don't know where the jury were.
By his own admission, he killed Ryan. But in a court of law, he was proven not guilty.
We were lost for words. We was took into a room by our barrister, and he told us there was nothing else more that we could do.
That was it.
It's 19 months on now, and it's like it was yesterday. Doesn't get any easier. You just learn to put this brave face on and just carry on. And just get up in the morning and just go through the motions of, like, every day.
I just wish I could wake up and cuddle him. One more time.
A boxing match at Walsall Town Hall has descended into violence as a mass fight erupted between rival supporters.
There was a brawl inside. Just sort of carnage happened at that point, and I think chairs were tried to be thrown. People then were just getting into fights, then just sort of opened the doors, and there was just a flood of people onto the street.
Live from the Black Country on FM.
Mr. Asbury, who was 19, was stabbed in the neck after he'd attended a boxing event at Walsall Town Hall.
And the phone went, and we had to, says that Regan had been hurt, just panic. We had to jump in the car and get to Walsall. Regan was on the floor and everybody was shouting. He's fighting for his life, shouting Regan. Come on, Regan, fight. Fight, Regan.
He said that he found the knife on the floor. He's gone down to pick it back up. That's the moment that you see him pick up the knife and run behind Regan and stab him in the neck.
They'd got to have been about 7. 7 people working on him. And I remember this one man, he had normal clothes on, but he was also giving him CPR. And he stood up and he looked like he was going to pass out. It was about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes before I got to the hospital.
I was just holding his neck. I took him to surgery. Couldn't stop him bleeding.
And that's the moment when they said to Mum and Dad that they was going to turn the machines off because his organs had shut down. And I remember just screaming in the car and thinking that it couldn't be happening. And I just, at that point myself, I wanted to die. I couldn't think of how my life was going to be without him. I think that's one of the things that haunts me, is thinking, as his older sister, I wasn't there to protect him. I think about, you know, whether he was in pain and whether he was scared, because I know my brother and I know that he would have been.
An international manhunt is underway after the suspect wanted in relation to the murder of Regan is identified as 21-year-old Tyrone Andrew.
CCTV footage shows him walking back into his flat with just his boxers on and shorts. He comes back out a few minutes later, all dressed.
His killer was out there somewhere on the run.
Tyrone Andrew was last caught on CCTV boarding a flight to Amsterdam and has so far evaded capture by authorities.
How he could have then functioned and got himself onto a plane and gone over to Amsterdam is beyond me. The focus then became on making the person pay that did this to Regan.
A man who was arrested in Spain has been charged with the murder of Walsall teenager Regan Asbury. 21-year-old Tyrone Andrew from Derby was flown back to the UK yesterday after being held in Barcelona on a European arrest warrant. He's due to appear in court in Birmingham.
And I went to that court every single day, and it tore me apart. But I had to know for my son every single detail in statement. I had to. And I know it scarred me, but I had to know. I had to do it for Regan.
Then we found out that he was dealing drugs from the age of 17. You know, we're not talking sort of low-level drugs. There was cocaine and whatever else, Class A drugs.
He showed no remorse, no nothing. Sat in the gallery, slumped in his chair, talking to the other defendants, members of their family, sitting behind me, laughing, dirty looks.
What kept us going, of getting up and going and sitting in and listening and all the waiting about that we had to do, was the fact that we was going to see Regan's killer go down for murder. That's what kept us going. And the foreman stood up and he said, "We do not find the defendant guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter."
The jury on the Regan Ashbury murder case has returned its verdict, clearing Tyrone Andrew of murder, but finding him guilty of manslaughter. He is also cleared of carrying an offensive weapon, having claimed he had found the murder weapon at the scene.
It was that moment that changed our lives.
It's just a slap to the face. The justice system's all wrong. Total letdown. Don't want to carry on. That's how I feel. Helen feels the same. She don't want to carry on.
A boxing fan who killed a rival fan by stabbing him in the neck has been sentenced to 14 years imprisonment.
We essentially have lost our parents along with Regan. They're not half the people that they used to be. They're existing You know, they're not living, and you know, the house just feels dead now. It feels lifeless. And every time I come home and I walk up the driveway, it's like a black cloud that feels like it's just surrounding the house. You just feel the grief as you walk into the house.
And it's every day. It's just ain't a week go by where there's nothing about knife crime. It just seems like an everyday occurrence. I never thought anything like should happen to our family.
So the fact that he only got 14 years manslaughter and he'll serve half of that, so 6.5 years, the message that it sends out is that you're only gonna get 6.5 years if you kill someone. It's not that much of a big deal. You know, the message that it sends out to me is that human lives do not matter. People are getting killed left, right and centre every single day, and no one seems to care. The government doesn't seem to care. Nobody seems to care. You know, it's in the media for a couple of days, not even that sometimes, and then it's gone, forgotten about and added to the other statistics.
I know he had a good life, but he should have had more. Should have had many more, many years.
About a month ago, I had the most vivid dream of James and I sitting on the sofa in the lounge. And we were just chatting about nothing, and it was so real. In the dream, I remember thinking, James hasn't been murdered. I've got this wrong. I must have dreamt it. And then the jolt of realisation woke me up. And as I was coming to, I could hear someone crying. And it was me. And every morning, you wake up with that new realisation that you've got to live without your son.
It literally was at the end of the road where we live. I don't know, 400 yards.
It was just a sea of blue flashing lights. And we abandoned our cars at the top of the high street.
Jumped out and ran across the grass verge to be greeted with a scene that nobody should have to witness. It was horrific.
We were ushered away, and we had to wait in the background while they worked on him for nearly an hour.
James was having open heart surgery on the footpath.
And I just remember asking them, is he going to be okay? And I can just see the look on their faces now. They're like, we don't know. And I just remember thinking to myself, he's fine, he's strong, he'll pull through.
The impact of the knife was delivered with force to the point that it broke part of James's sternum and penetrated the heart.
The 26-year-old was stabbed to death on the town's high street as he made his way home after a night out.
It was reported that he died in our arms because he did it, because we weren't allowed to go to him.
It's a scene that will never, ever disappear in any of our minds. They came back to us and said, we couldn't save him, you can go to him. So we did. He was lying in his own blood. We got covered in blood. And I thought, I'm sitting, kneeling, lying in my son's blood, you know, somewhere where I've walked for many years, casually walking from home to Aldridge and back again. And he's not here.
Time just sort of froze, and I can just remember my mum and dad just like sitting with him, lying with him, and I just couldn't. I had to sit on the floor. I couldn't even look at him. I feel so guilty about that.
2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man was stabbed to death in Aldridge. It follows one of the largest CCTV tracking exercises ever undertaken in the Midlands.
It is unclear what completely happened, and to this day we still don't know why they attacked him. For what gain, I do not know. They didn't know him and he didn't know them. I just know that they approached him and it lasted roughly about 35 seconds from them stabbing him to then him collapsing on the high street.
Just out of the blue to come and take somebody's life and not have a valid reason is something I don't think you can ever come to terms with. Never, ever. You know, in the blink of an eye, somebody was walking along the road and the next, staggering back to get help. Something I can't fathom. I can't understand why somebody would want to do that.
A 17-year-old and a man aged 20 were taken into custody last night following the death of James Brindley on Friday. The 26-year-old was stabbed as he walked home along the town's high street.
They just walked off and went home for 2.5, 3 weeks, like nothing had happened. Sorry. That's guilty to me.
2 men have been charged with the murder of James Brindley after a nationwide Crime Watch appeal uncovered their identities. They will be tried at Birmingham Crown Court.
His attitude and his face and his eyes, pure evil. Just remote. There was no feeling there, nothing.
Amar Karod has been convicted of the murder of James Brindley and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum jail term of 17 years. The other man was acquitted.
No, there isn't any sense of justice, I don't think. They were both there at the scene, 2 against 1, and they both knew what they were doing. No, there's no closure.
All I wanted was for them both to be convicted and justice would be served, as it was. It wasn't completely, it wasn't the outcome that we wanted, but it gave you a focus to get justice for James. But that hasn't happened and we feel let down by what we went through. But that's not apportioning any blame on the services, on the police or CPS or any of that. It is how it is. We walked out of court when that verdict was announced that he was free, after witnessing what he did when he turned around and smirked to all his family and put his thumbs up.
Those young lads have stolen our son, taken his life, and taken our lives as well. They've ruined everything. We're all really damaged, abnormal people now. Life hasn't felt real since that evening. So there's this surreal feeling about everything. How could this possibly be our lives? And it can happen to anybody, anywhere.
There isn't a moment when James isn't in my thoughts, or in any of our thoughts. It's the first thing on my mind when I wake up in the morning. It's the last thing at night. Even though you are living and doing and performing and going through life. And it's so difficult not to be able to hear his voice. And there are times when I can't look at the photographs of him because it's too painful, because he was so beautiful.
I was born in Africa, where Lorik was born as well. I brought him here for good education, good life. He was good at school, and he was good boy, intelligent, respect people. But other man, other person decide for us.
A 22-year-old student from London, Lorik Lobato, has been found stabbed in a Leicester city centre attack following a fight which broke out at a student party. Harrowing CCTV footage has been released of the moment the aspiring designer was knifed to death. The mass brawl involving more than 20 people started over a pointless argument in a stairwell. The fight, with some of the group armed with flick knives, a hunting knife, other household knives and bottles, spread out into the stairwell of the flat and then into the street. The victim, Lorik Lobato, armed himself with a fire extinguisher to protect himself and was then cornered and chased by the group. He was then fatally stabbed in the right side of his torso. Shortly afterwards, Lorik Lobato died from his injuries in the street.
By knife crime, my son has passed away. My son's death affects me. Now, it's difficult for me to go out with friends. Difficult to go to the job, to work. Difficult to smile. The stress every day. I'm suffering. Any single minute, I'm suffering. I'm suffering. My son Lorik, for me, it was the diamond. Do you know where we can find the diamond? In the dirt. But if we find it in the dirt, we never put back in the dirt. But my diamond is back in the dirt.
A 20-year-old man, Suleiman Salah, has been found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment at Birmingham Crown Court for the murder of Lorik Lobato. He has been ordered to serve a minimum of 24 years.
Please, to young people, don't bring knife in the streets. Don't carry knife because you are destroy the family. My son Lorik, I missed you forever and ever.
Samantha had 43 knife wounds on her body. That's how bad the attack was. It was so vicious, the attack, that no normal human being could do that. Said she wouldn't have felt anything. I always wonder if she did. I always wonder what she was thinking when it was happening to her.
– 18-year-old mother of a newborn son and aspiring model, Samantha Magin, was out with friends when she was subjected to a brutal and frenzied attack by a teenager high on drink and drugs.
Samantha was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. 18-year-old, saying goodnight to her friends, wanting to walk back home. Had a nice summer dress on and her flip-flops, looking as beautiful as ever, as she always did.
She was just a young, innocent mother walking home. was stabbed to death for absolutely no reason. And some people think, oh, it'll never ever happen to your own. I mean, I probably thought that, and here I am sitting now telling our story.
The teenager was taken to North Tyneside General Hospital, but was pronounced dead shortly afterwards. The police have launched a murder inquiry and are calling for witnesses to come forward.
I just wouldn't leave the hospital until I was allowed to see her. That moment, looking at Samantha through the glass, as a parent, I was thinking, oh my God, that's my daughter, my baby. But I just wanted to go and pick her up and cuddle her. She was just lying there, and I just remember shouting at her to try and wake her up. And she just looked like she was just a young girl asleep.
I got to the hospital, and that's when I seen my mum. And then I knew something really bad had happened. She was just screaming and knocking on the window.
Saying goodbye to them is one of the worst things ever. And the reality, now they're not coming back. She was just taken instantly. No warning, no nothing.
Samantha Magin leaves behind her 10-week-old son, thought to be the youngest associated victim of knife crime. Callum is now in the care of his grandmother.
We had a young boy to bring up, Callum. You just have to cope. You're not given a choice. I'm a mother again at 42, which, I never meant to be.
I do believe we've all lived different lives because of what happened that night, especially Callum. And he's grew up without his mother.
But I was determined that I had to give Callum a decent life. And I wouldn't let Samantha down. It just gave me the strength to be with him, protect him, and to make sure that I see him smile nearly every day. I got a lot of strength from having Callum. I don't know if I could have clung on as long as I have.
Tyneside police have confirmed that 15-year-old schoolgirl Jordan Jobson has been charged with the murder of Samantha Magin after handing herself in to authorities.
How can somebody of that age go out and kill somebody else, and that she didn't know Samantha? I think it hurt more.
A jury of 8 men and 4 women has unanimously found 15-year-old Jordan Jobson guilty of the murder of Samantha Magin. She is sentenced to life with a minimum period of 15 years before being considered for parole.
She was given the maximum sentence of 15 years that you can give to an under 16-year-old, which unfortunately was reduced to 12 a couple of years later, and then reduced again to 11. I mean, there's never been any remorse from the murderer.
Teen knife killer Jordan Jobson was due for parole this year, but failed to behave during her preparation for release in an open prison. She is now back in jail. The then 15-year-old had her sentence reduced twice following new legislation on minors at 2 separate appeals.
She'll be sitting there now looking forward to her days getting out. She'll be a young woman. She'll be able to get married, she'll be able to have relationships, she'll be able to have children. And that's all being taken from Samantha. It's so wrong. I do feel angry that I feel like my daughter's life just didn't mean anything to them. If you're getting a life sentence, you need to be in jail for life, because all these crimes that are happening, it seems like a lot of it, they're under 18 and they're just getting the lesser sentence. Well, bring the sentencing up.
And she took Samantha's life, and along with it, she took ours.
She took a massive piece of my heart. She took Callum's world from him. And you can feel that piece of your heart missing when you're walking around, just even waking up in the mornings. You know there's a big hole there that'll never fill. She took everything away, really. She took my happiness away. You always feel sad afterwards. The sadness just is so deep. Every day gets worse without her. It's a battle, trying to survive.
This is Society nightclub. This is where my son was murdered. From going into the club to Daniel dying was 20 minutes. He's gone out for a night out to enjoy himself, and he's not come home. It didn't matter what they did, Daniel wasn't going to survive. They cut his main artery in his neck in half.
A night out ended in tragedy as an 18-year-old man was stabbed to death in an unprovoked bar fight in the Society nightclub in Coventry.
5:10, the door went and I thought it was Daniel, and it was police. I'll never forget it. He said, "Are you in the house on your own?" Which I thought was a strange thing to say. And I said, "No." And then he just said, "There's no easy way." And I said, "Please, don't say it."
I heard a knock at the door and then I heard my mum screaming.
They said, "Your son's been murdered. He's been stabbed." I don't remember half of what happened at that point. I've since been told your brain shuts down to protect you from the horror. All I can see when I go down is Daniel lying in the road. That's all I can see. Imagining it. Daniel lying in the road on the cold road.
4 men have been arrested and charged following the stabbing to death of 18-year-old Daniel Kirkwood in a Coventry nightclub. They are due to appear at Warwick Crown Court in February.
It took 10 months to come to trial. It was a 9-week trial. I wanted to scream and shout, but I wanted to keep my dignity in front of the judge. And I didn't want to let my son down.
When I think about Thompson, the offender, I feel sick. I just think to myself, how can someone be so evil? Like, Thompson had no remorse whatsoever towards us as a family. Like, he has murdered someone, but he doesn't care.
CCTV, wasn't sure whether I wanted to see it. You see Daniel, his 8 friends, walking towards the club. You see them all laughing and joking. You know, looking forward to the night ahead. Then you see the incident. Daniel's over on the dance floor dancing with a couple of his mates. Another couple of mates are at the bar to talk to a girl. Thompson takes offence at this because he was talking to her earlier, goes over to get the other 4. They come over, an argument ensues, they start fighting. Then you see Daniel run over from the dance floor with his friends in towards the group, see what's going on. You see Thompson karate kick him to the back. Daniel drops to the floor. Then you see a knife. And then Daniel's stabbed on the floor. He was stabbed in the neck on the floor. Adrenaline. He got up, made his way outside, collapsed outside. His friend lied next to him, put a jumper around his neck, tried to stem the bleeding. When the ambulance came, he was dead.
25-year-old Tobijah Thompson has been jailed for life for the murder of teenager Daniel Kirkwood following a 9-week trial at Leamington Justice Centre.
Tobijah Thompson, who killed my son, he got 32 years. The 32 years he received was worse than 9 weeks of torture. The house is just empty now without him. And my life is empty without him. If I can get out of bed, that's a good day. I'm just a shell of what I used to be.
It's like so much that he's not going to see that I wish he was here to see. I look quite different from when I did when he died. And I always think to myself, like, would he recognise me now? what does he think of, like, me now? Like, there's so much I wanted to talk about with him and, like, experience with him as, like, brother and sister, but it's just been taken now.
A knife angel is a structure made from knives that were placed in amnesty bins all over the country.
All them knives represent someone's life.
If you were a victim of knife crime, you could have went to Ostrich Tree and had your child's name or young person or older person's name etched on the knife, which we did for Daniel. It's happening every single day. I hear it and it takes you straight back to that day. My heart goes out to the parents and the families because I know how it feels. I know every emotion they're going through, and I go through it with them. Something's got to be done, it's got to stop.
My brother.
My son.
My son.
My son.
My stepson.
My sister.
For every tragic victim, there are countless families who are living in daily fear.
In my opinion, I think to stop knife crime, there needs to be more searches in schools and colleges. Like, the next generation from primary school need to be shown the effects, obviously not in such a horrific way, but in a way which they can understand and realise what is happening.
Youth services that young people may have been able to use before have been gutted.
There's got to be tougher sentences, there's got to be tougher deterrents. There isn't one. There isn't one. People will just continue carrying them.
It seems to be, if you're caught with a knife, you sort of get a slap on the hand and that's that. But I do think if people thought the consequences would be worse, then they would probably think again about carrying a knife.
We need more police officers.
Fund our police service urgently and reinstate 21,000 officers in our system.
It's got to be made to be uncool, surely. Certain people think it's cool. They've got to be shown that actually it's not.
We cannot afford to have this sort of glamorization of a gang lifestyle still available on social media.
It's everyone, all ages, all races, all ethnicities, like, it's everyone. You think it won't happen to you, but you never know.
Action is needed now. So the Prime Minister and I have decided, exceptionally, to make available immediately to police forces in England an additional £100 million over the course of the next year, targeted specifically on knife crime.
You don't expect these things to happen on your doorstep and keep happening. When somebody hears of somebody dying and it happens again, you just think they don't learn. But who's going to be next?
We all wish that there was one thing, just one, that we could do to stop this violence. But there are no shortcuts. There is no one single solution.
Something needs to be done. It's happening every day now. It's every day. And I've cried every day I hear it. And I think that their families have got to go through, all their families got to go through what I've been through. And I wish they could just realise what they do.